Plan. The United States federal government should remove the economic embargo against Cuba. Advantage 1, U.S.-Cuba relations. Removing the economic embargo restores U.S.-Cuba relations. Now is the key time to prevent permanent isolation. Distal 13. Hugo Chavez's departure furnishes Obama with an opportunity to repair with U.S. ties. The change of leadership can unlock the deadlock over Cuba. Shared commerce now provides a formidable incentive and a launching platform for a fresh start. Obama, whose first term ended up perpetuating Washington's historical neglect of Latin America, the political climate seems propitious. Economic and cultural ties are also strengthening dramatically. Obama could change this dynamic if he tried. One way to do it would be to unpick Cuban problem. Having won nearly half of the Cuban-American vote in Florida in 2012, Obama could move quickly on Cuba. The move by Obama to end the trade embargo would be applauded across the region, explode old stereotypes, and help build confidence with Venezuela, the Castro regime's key backer. U.S. influence in the region is critical to deter conflict. China is trying to displace the U.S. Dow 2012. U.S. policymakers have neglected the expanding influence of China in Latin America. Beijing has approached every country and provided military exchanges, aid, or training. China has a growing presence in the region's military. China is developing trade and military ties. This is a direct challenge to U.S. primacy in the region. The U.S. must re-engage its own neighborhood economically. Re-engagement means reviving U.S. diplomacy to deter China and prevent an accidental war in Latin America. Focusing on Chinese encroachment would make it clear to Beijing that the U.S. discourages control of China in the Americas. Specifically, increased Chinese influence risks war over Taiwan. Ferguson 12. One of China's main goals is to isolate Taipei internationally. Nowhere is this more evident than in Latin America, where 12 of the 23 nations that still have diplomatic relations with the ROC reside. The ROC has more support in the Americas than any other region. Every country which switches its recognition to the PRC damages its legitimacy. For the PRC, every state which withdrawal support takes it closer to resolve Taiwan issue unilaterally. PRC refuses to maintain relations with any state that recognizes the ROC. Were the ROC to be deserted, the U.S. would be disadvantaged in attempting to maintain the status quo across the strait. As China's economic position improves, so might its ambitions. PRC conclude a settlement on Taiwan, perhaps by force. China is only using Latin America to isolate Taiwan. This causes tensions to escalate. He's saying 9. Latin America has been a diplomatic battlefield between China and Taiwan. Taiwan's president inflamed across trade tensions and economic stagnation. His tactics are often unnecessarily provocative, ranging from calling for independence to renaming public buildings to emphasize Taiwanese identity. Taiwan-U.S. relationships are, as a result, at their lowest ebb in decades. The United States must continue to make sure that the military adventures are unattractive to both sides of the Taiwan Strait. He also cautioned that Taiwan has to realize that its long-term security lies in some sort of arrangement with China. It does not lie in military defenses. But Taiwan has long held justifiable complaint about its international political isolation, about Beijing's efforts to force nations to choose diplomatic relations with either Taiwan or China. Beijing needs to think creatively about how to gradually allow Taiwan international space. This is a crucial subject and necessary to win the hearts and minds of Taiwanese people. China also deserves some credit for sharing some international space with Taiwan. In November, APEC issued a list of countries and leaders on which Taiwan was referred to as Chinese Taipei. While the other China principle has long been the political basis for the establishment and development of relations between China and Latin American and Caribbean countries and regional organizations, Lian's participation suggests that Beijing currently has less interest in to isolate Taiwan and Latin America. Global nuclear war, Conflict 9. A war between China and the U.S. has potential to escalate into nuclear and Third World War. Many countries, including Japan, both Koreas, Russia, Australia, India, and Great Britain, were drawn into the war, as well as all other countries that participate in global economy. Advantage 2, Cuban economy. Multiple threats to Cuba's economy risk collapse during the current transition, Morse 11. Risks in the short term, hazards the old guard are seeking to closely manage generational handover, but their control will diminish. Despite its efforts to dampen expectations, there is a sense amongst the Cuban public should see material benefits from the economic reforms. If these hopes are dashed, the government faces a serious crisis. In the economic sphere, there are many hazards arising from the process of transformation. That monetary growth will outstrip that of supply, so that inflationary pressures could build at a time when the government is losing its power. A major financial fiscal crisis could jeopardize the reform process and hamper the government's ability to respond to social pressures. External risks are heightened by Cuba's lack of access to emergency financing. The largest single risk comes from Cuba's high degree of dependency on Venezuela and export of professional services.
It's not that. Right. So, Ryan, did you start the...
Yeah.
You started the...
Yes. I've been going for a long time.
Score reforms are not enough. Only the plan promotes a successful transition. Increasing economic ties are key. Column 13. Reform is gradual, short on results that would ignite the economy. Failure to tap offshore oil and gas fields or agricultural damage dealt further setbacks. These trends suggest an inflection point is approaching, and now is the time to try a new paradigm for de-icing the frozen conflict. The embargo handcuffed the U.S. and has prevented it from any positive influence. The aim of direct bilateral talks would be to resolve migration, travel, trade, and investment. Authorizing payments for exports to Cuba can also facilitate technical assistance on market-oriented reforms from the international financial institutions. By authorizing financial and technical assistance to small businesses and cooperatives are permitting trade. Adding new categories for general license travel in the economic sector. Granting general license for travelers. Increasing or eliminating the gap in cash and gifts. Limiting the daily expenditure cap for U.S. citizens visiting Cuba, and removing the prohibition on the use of U.S. credit. Steps recommended above would give the tools to have a constructive dialogue with the Cuban government. It is time for a new approach and initiative to engage constructively to empower the Cuban people. We access multiple internal links to Cuban economic recovery. See TIM 3. Harmful economic effects of the embargo, the direct embargo and damages exceed $70 billion. 1. Due to the obstacles to development of service and exportations. 2. Losses as a result of commercial flows. 3. The impact of limitation imposing the growth of national production of goods and services. 4. Additional costs of opposition to the integration into international financial institutions. 5. Effects of immigration. 6. Social damages. The embargo impedes the driving force of the Cuban economy recovery, tourism, FDI, and currency transfers. Cuba instability collapse causes Latin America instability and terror attacks. Royal 5. Power vacuum creates conditions for instability and civil war. When Cuba collapses, anarchy is a strong possibility. Several hundred thousand flee, creating refugee crisis. The opportunity for radical groups to operate increases. If these groups can export terrorist activity from Cuba to the U.S. or throughout the hemisphere, such activity could threaten the stability of fragile democracies budding throughout the region. The U.S. may be forced to deploy forces. The U.S. can little afford to be distracted by a failed state 90 miles off its coast. Africa and the Caucasus are hotspots. North Korea will be in a crisis. We cannot ignore China. Iran could be next. These are situations that could require national power. Can the U.S. afford to let the Cuban situation play out? That causes nuclear war and extinction. Men wearing 5. State failure is the most dangerous long-term security challenge facing the global economy, global community. Failed state is the breeding ground for instability, criminality, insurgency, regional conflict. These means of coercion and persuasion can spawn further human rights violations, torture, poverty, starvation, disease, and proliferation of conventional weapons systems, and WMD, genocide, ethnic cleansing, and criminal anarchy. These actions spill over into the regional syndromes of deep destabilization and conflict.
Cuba.
Drug cartels call these activities business incentives about Latin American instability. Destroying such governments are real and endanger global security, peace, and prosperity.
17 seconds.
What?
I got 17 seconds left.
Alright, so on the first advantage, can you go more into detail on the internal link between the U.S., China, Taiwan, that whole kind of basically impact scenario?
You're a bitch.
China-Taiwan impact scenario.
Basically the entire first, just the internal link of the first
Wait,
advantage.
is this open or closed?
Open,
I
I guess.
think it,
Mostly, I want Harrison to see.
you said China and Taiwan.
Yeah, what's the internal link of the first impact?
China
Okay.
is only using Latin America
What?
to isolate Taiwan.
Okay, but
No,
how does doing the plan stop China from still using Taiwan? Riley?
Pretty much. China's.
I got it. Okay. By allowing China to basically economically take over Latin America, this allows China to acquire soft power and build their economic empire. And
Okay, but how does the plan solve for that?
Because
the U.S. basically would replace China in this position of economic dominance.
Okay. Didn't really want to spend the entire cross-section on that one question, but how does the embargo? How does lifting the embargo help the Cuban economy?
Lifting the embargo will basically pump money back into the Cuban economy. It won't go to the government, but to the Cuban people, and stimulate economic growth.
How's
Obviously,
money being
by-
pumped into the?
Through trade.
Yeah, I mean, it
Quid pro
opens
quo.
up trading partners between the U.S. and Cuba. I mean, after all, they're only like what?
Does
90 miles?
Cuba trade with anyone now?
Yeah, but it only makes sense to trade with someone closer than you. It just makes things faster
Okay,
and
that's
less
yes.
complicated.